And she's like, okay, I don't have to have everything planned out. And I'm feeling the vulnerability of like, my identity's changing. Her identity's changing. She feels like everything's changing. And so I said to her the other day, make a list of all the things that are staying the same. And go back to that because there is a lot changing and you have permission to have it change. I need to take that same advice.
Life gets easier if we figure it out together. Welcome to The Lisa Show. I'm talking with Ganel-Lyn Condie. Ganel-Lyn, you have been a guest on The Lisa Show many times. You've talked through a lot of really difficult things. You've kind of shared your story, but what's interesting to me is you're a speaker, you're a writer, you're a presenter. You talk about really hard things. And I watch you on social media. You're a hustler.
Thank you. And I don't have people doing that, just side note. I
know. And you're like a one-woman entrepreneurial like hustler for things that are hard. And I simply want to ask you, like, why? Like, what's your deal? As a friend who loves you very much.
With all the love in the world.
There are certainly easier ways to help people or easier ways to make money or easier ways to do that. And so—
Oh, wait, is there money involved? I didn't get that.
See, this is
memo.
the thing. I feel like I need to break it to you.
Okay.
Like other people are working really— No, I don't want to diminish what you do. And certainly I'm laughing about it. But I do find it interesting when, I have friends who are doing unconventional creations and hustling in a lot of like sort of different directions. Mm-hmm. And it is so unconventional. And a lot of people will say, why? Like what is your purpose and why? And how do you find that?
There's a lot to unpack in that question.
I know. Listen, I didn't give you a softball.
Okay, so I'm going to just be really authentic. For me, knowing your why for any stewardship, any job, any role that you're playing is key because I get lost in the weeds.
And now stewardship is your word.
Man.
You use it all the time, but I don't think like conventionally a lot of us really use it.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
So for under $8 on Amazon, you can buy my new book on the stewardship principle.
Oh my gosh. Don't stop.
So listen, I'm going to say to you that like for me, when I learned this principle about 10 years ago, it changed everything and it answers your original thought and question. For me, everything's a stewardship. So my chronic illness, my parenting status, my marital status, all the little bio things you just threw out there, like writing, speaking, showing up on TV and radio, it's all stewardship. But so is like our unemployment and our dog peeing on the carpet. And for me, everything is something that I can give watch care over. But I'm going to be transparent with your listeners. I am in a total, like, if I had to choose a word to tattoo on my arm about the theme of the last 12 months, it would be transition. Yeah. And there's so much change and transition just from like, my youngest is about to move out and go to college.
So you're going to be an empty nester.
Empty nesting. To one of my work projects, my co-host changed this year. To like physical changes, just like age-wise, I'm 51. And so I'm in perimenopause. And I may be currently having a hot flash while we're taping this.
Congratulations.
You guys can't see it or feel it, but it's happening.
You just look glowing.
Thank you. And so I would say that my why doesn't feel like a stagnant point on a map. I'm not always super clear on my why. And I will say that I'm questioning a lot of things because I feel like as a mom, a lot of the last 24 years has been pouring myself into my kids in a way of like, get the ingredients out, mix them up in the bowl, put it in the pan, put it in the oven, and then it's going to come out like this cake. And guess what? Just a spoiler alert, when your kids hit a certain age, it doesn't come out like a certain cake recipe. And so I've been asking a lot of questions of like, what was all that for? Why did I do that? But on my good, clear days, to answer your question in the simplest of terms, for me, success is defined by impact. And I don't know how you define that because how do you measure it?
How do you measure it, especially as a parent?
Right. Or even as a whatever you call as an influencer. I hate the word followers. Like, is it the number of followers? Is it the number of books you sell? Is it the choices of your kids? So to go back, if I'm in stewardship, I kind of surrender outcomes. And when I'm in ownership, I get really stuck by the measurable, like, criteria. And I don't think you can measure in parenting. I don't
think so either. I don't think it matters. That whole thing, quote unquote, how your kids turn, like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
When do they turn out?
Right.
Like, at what point?
Because we're all works in progress.
We're always changing and moving and evolving. And you could be the best parent in the world and your kid could choose a miserable life.
Well,
listen.
listen.
For them, I hate to go down that road, but it does speak to, I think, because I am experiencing like, a similar thing,
Which thanks for the validation, by the way, before we started taping. Because honestly, I think there's not a lot of voices about this stage of life.
I don't know how to talk about this stage of life. And I feel like because my life experience seems so extreme that it makes it harder just to say, the year after my husband died, 3 of my children left home. They left home. They were adults and they transitioned to adulthood, and in 3 different ways. Because
it's a grieving process,
and it just seemed so extreme and so devastating on a different level that I hadn't anticipated. That it is really difficult to talk about, and then you start doing all of this self-evaluation of, well, what does it mean? Did we do a good job? Did you guys have a good childhood? What do you think about this? What kind of a relationship do we have? Are you happy? Did I teach you how to make more food than just grilled cheese? And
by the way, I didn't. And there's a cereal bar, hopefully somewhere, to keep my kids alive.
Right. Well, no, but all of those questions, and you think, oh, that's silly. That doesn't matter. And you put it out of your head.
No, but
it's the accumulation of so many moments of like that, of like, oh, did I teach you this? Oh, do you know this?
Right.
And you can text them. And of course, you still have a relationship with them, but it feels
changing
different.
forever.
And it's changing your identity because now my influence is not, oh, when my kids are at home, I can influence them this way and that way, or we have this kind of relationship. And when they leave, it's so symbolic that it's going to take more of an effort. And then it's so much of my time, like you were saying, pouring into this, like I love it and this is so meaningful and this is what I want and choose. And then when they don't need you and your time is now used in a different way, it is a real weird thing for you to look at your own identity. Or it has been for me to say, okay, so I used to be like, I'm a mom of 5 and I have these 5 great, and it's like I still have 5 kids, of course, but I'm raising them in a different way, and there's only 2 at home and 1 who's really home.
And you know what? The truth is that all the quote unquote good I've tried to put in the world, from raising kids to writing books to content I post on social media, if I'm not clear on my why, and I'm not. Let me say that. Like, I'm clear sometimes and other times I'm not clear on my why, then I could get really, like, I don't even know if there's a therapist that could process that. If there is, like, message me on LinkedIn or something.
Yes, seriously.
Right. Because this middle age, I think it is a moment to stop and assess and say, this role has changed.
Okay,
this
so
professional role has changed.
I'm really curious, though, like, to go back and like a time where you felt like this is it. Like felt like all of your goals aligned with how your life looked. Like, have you ever had a time like that?
Well, I will say,
like moments?
The last few years has felt like synergistic. Like my kids were independent enough that the creative side of me was going out in the world in a way that the mom guilt looked a little better or different, right? I just felt like they wanted some independence, and so my projects created a healthy boundary between us. But there's been changes on that front, on top of changes physically, on top of my kids moving on, and me questioning so many things at a time. That I had a friend yesterday, something like, say, I think we were talking about this like 4 years ago, and I'm like, am I a broken record? Did I say the same thing 4 years ago? And it forced me to stop and say, that was this many books ago, and this was this many shows ago, and this many events ago, and my kids are in this space, not in prison, and it reminded me that I have accomplished and I have created, but I am in a very vulnerable space where I'm questioning what all that was for. And I am questioning, like you just were saying about parenting. I have more empathy for my mother-in-law. I just talked to her this week and I was like, Mom, she's almost 90.
Oh, wow.
And I married her middle. So she has some older than my husband and some younger. And I said, I walk through the house sometimes and I have this like gut punch response when I see like a picture on the wall of the old little family. Or I see moms pushing the strollers to the park. And I know they're exhausted. And I know they have creative outlets that they don't even know how to do because they're doing diapers and all that. And she said, you know what? That doesn't go away. I said, great.
Oh, thanks for the
Thanks
heads
so
up.
much.
That reminds me of when I was talking to my mom and I said something like, I just want him to be okay. Like as if there
You
was
would arrive.
there was a destination point where I'm like, all of my kids are happy and doing exactly what they want.
checked
or, I
all
don't
the
know.
boxes.
Yeah, I don't know. And she just kind of laughed at me and she's like, you never stop worrying about your kids. And I was like, please don't tell me that's true. She goes, no, every night when I go to bed, like we're all old.
Right.
And have our own families.
Right.
She's like, I lay in my bed and I think
The prayer list is long.
I imagine where each one of my kids are, that they're okay before I go to bed. And I just thought,
did?
ooh, I don't know, that just gut punched me in a different way.
It does.
Yeah.
And they may
but
not.
now I totally am the same. I lay down and I just think, okay, and I go through all my kids, where they are. And
But don't you have empathy and understanding for her now?
oh my gosh, 100%.
And I'm like, wait, so I have to wait till my kids are then parents for them to circle back? And is that the cycle of life? Are we doing Lion King? I think we are doing Lion King.
Don't you hate to be a cliche?
I know. And so, to answer your question, I have moments that I feel like I've gotten sacred feedback from people where they're like, that thing you did changed me at a genetic level or a DNA level. Like I feel different from reading your book or hearing you on this show or whatever. That matters. But I also am like, what is the next phase supposed to be? I don't know if there's a lot of these conversations we're having today that just allow space for men and women at this age to sit and talk about it.
Well, yeah, and at any transition, because I think we all hit different transitions at different times. It doesn't follow like a clear trajectory. You can't look around. I feel like I've learned that dramatically. Like when Christopher, my late husband, got diagnosed and when he passed away, I was like, none of my other friends have had to bury a husband. None of my other friends have their own headstone. I joke about it all the time. I'm like, hey, you guys, you should just get a headstone.
Get one
by me. I'm trying to make it this normal thing so I have somebody
By
to
the way,
talk
I do
about
need
how
to talk,
weird it is.
I do need to talk to you about that because I've started thinking we don't have a place. Where do we get buried?
Come over by me.
Okay.
There are places
then
available.
We could hang out.
And none of my friends
Okay, seriously.
will
Would
do
you
it.
message me later?
No, because here's the thing. No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, no one does.
And when your life, you have to talk about it and think about it. You have to do it by yourself.
Well, and I have lupus, and we were told when we were married 3 years, we're married 31 years now, I had 10 years left to live, and I would never have kids. That was the reality. The doctor sat me down and you'll never have kids. You'll be dead in 10 years. So that puts a whole nother spin on assessing what I've put out in the world and what impact I've had and what's of value, because honestly, I shouldn't be here. I am 21 years past when they thought, and I have 2 kids. And so one of the things that really stops me is I feel like life has been a gift, but it's been challenging and hard. And I would say that you and I are having this conversation. Anyone younger than us is going, I wonder what are they talking about? Or maybe they're
I don't know. And
but
here's
I think
why.
my daughter is feeling the same thing about ready to go to college.
Yeah.
I think
transition is a transition.
It is.
And when they're trying to, or a couple of my kids are looking towards the end of graduation, how do I want to live? Where do I want to live? It seems overwhelming because these are important questions.
Yeah, I've said the same thing to her recently.
A transition is a transition.
Yeah, I've said, sweetie, there's no race. And then I'm thinking, wait, take your own stinking advice, Mom. Yeah. There is no race at 51. And she's like, okay, I don't have to have everything planned out. And I'm feeling the vulnerability of my identity's changing. Her identity's changing. She feels like everything's changing. And so I said to her the other day, make a list of all the things that are staying the same. And go back to that because there is a lot changing and you have permission to have it change. I need to take that same advice. So at 18 versus 51, I feel like this conversation we're having today, if the listener is I'm not going through hot flashes right now. What are they talking about? My spouse didn't die. Oh, my last kid isn't moving out.
You just never know.
I think change is like be gentle with yourself and do what we're doing, Lisa. Literally, like every time I have these conversations with people that feel like they can see me, and for you, obviously we've had some where I'm not having the same stewardship as you. I'm not buying a headstone, but I'm feeling like I need to. So maybe we need to talk. Like the talking part of this is why I think podcasts are so effective. Because obviously you're listening to someone's conversation. Hopefully you're hearing like, wait, me too. And that helps me in some way just like ease into the wave of this. Because I'm afraid at times I'm going to be crashed against a rock of like, it was of nothing and I'll be rocking. I had a friend last night, what do you need from me? Because I had some hard news at work. And I said, could you just check on me in 3 months? If I'm just
yeah, like in the future.
I said I'm worried about where this like daughter gonna move out, play some of these things
Check on
out.
me in 3 months.
Could you
That's
just
so
check
funny.
on me?
No, because this is so interesting. This is going to make me want to cry too. Like 3 months after Chris died, I remember who showed up then. Like, right, because everything right at the beginning is a total blur. But if you said, who showed up at 3 months, I could give you a list. And because that's when you feel like
Everyone else
if
went
you
back
have horrible
to normal.
news or yes, there's a change,
New
there's a
baby.
transition or whatever, everything kind of settles down and you have the secondary shock that is so fun, which is now what?
Now what?
Now what are you going to do? It's not new anymore. You got to learn to live with this, whatever it is. There's no fighting the transition. There's no or the life change. There's only pivoting. So you're going to stay still. You're going to move forward. You're going to move this way. Like what are you going to do? And that's really interesting. And
I think I said that to you because I've tried to say that to all the new moms. Call me in 3 months, or I'll be checking on you after your whatever diagnosis.
Yeah, and I had a really good friend who he and his family came and he wrote a letter to each one of my kids. And because he lost his dad when he was, at a young age. And he said, and he came over and he gave some like just nice mementos and some food and I was so like shocked by it, like kind of confused because I was still like, what is
in the fog?
What is life? What does it all mean? And he said, I just remember, 3 months after was the hardest. And he had remembered that decades later and reached out to a friend in that like specific way. And it was just like, it was so meaningful. And I just think that a lot of times, when I ask you, why do you do what you do? Like, why don't you just like, wouldn't it be easier just to have a job where you don't have to think or, it's sort of like automatic. But I think even if you do have a job like that, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, because I know people who, have jobs and then that's in order to live the lives that they want to live, right? They find meaning in other things. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I really don't think that there is. I'm just curious with like, that hustle, knowing that what you're really doing is inviting constant change.
And
which is hard.
And constant opinion and feedback.
Ooh, yeah.
And I would just say, at the end of the day, I've been thinking about this because Olivia Newton-John just died at the time of this typing. And I've seen I saw your post about her right? And I think, what is the measure of the worth of someone's life? And for me, I know this sounds cliche. I really, when I get caught in the weeds, I get discouraged. I start questioning. I start doubting the impact. I try to bring it back to the one. And when I make it about that, I can list more than ones.
You mean of influence?
Of people that have shared with me. I really try to give feedback to other people about how they impact me on a regular basis because that's my love language. And so when someone texts me or messages me and says, listen, you don't even know. You think that no one's noticing. This has impacted me. Or one of my kids, my son said this to my husband yesterday. I'm taking it as a win, you guys. Because I don't know.
You can.
I don't know how to measure it. He said, you know what I love about our family, other than we play Wordle? He's like, I love that we stay connected, but we don't try to be too much. And like we give space to our adult kids. And that's a unique balance. And that changes. And I felt like whatever we're doing wrong, and we have done a lot wrong, I felt like it was a moment that sometimes it's easier to take in the criticism and the hard stuff and the messes, and we reject the moments where someone says, thank you
like
for
it's
what
good.
you did. And that was so good. Or my son's like, you know what I love about us? We're a hugging family, shocker, right? If anyone knows me.
Right.
And so he's like, I have to warn the people I bring over, friends and stuff, because they want to join our family. And I'm thinking, well, that must mean something. But I also know both my kids need to be in therapy and have gone to therapy, and because we didn't do it all right. And so I would just say, I'm trying to make space for the unknown, for the mess of blocks in the front of me on the floor that I don't know what to do with in my life, the transition, and receive some of the good. Because I wonder, did Olivia Newton-John know this week? Like, did people make sure in the last few years, I know she's had health issues, did she hear how much she had mattered to them?
Yeah, I wonder.
Before she passed? I don't know. I don't want to wait until I've seen people say we need to have celebrations of life before we're actually gone.
Well, what my husband did, right?
I know.
And at the end of his life, he would say, I love you to he never said that before. He was really not a crier, not just
It
a
changed.
joker, a joker. I don't know, just not sentimental, not, certainly not wear his heart on his sleeve like I am. You know, and
Every
were a
day
good
was more of our
balance
party.
like that. Yeah. But when he was really, really sick, he started saying, hey, I love you, man, to his guy friends. And I love you to all of his friends.
Yeah.
And at first it sounded sort of
Forced.
well, just odd when someone doesn't normally do that. And he made it so natural, because he really meant it.
But he did over
And
time, right? He
thought-
said it so much.
He said it so much that it just became, he would say it to everyone. And he said, I don't know how much, that's what living with a terminal disease is, right? I don't know how much time I have, and I don't want anyone to wonder.
Yep.
If I did, because it might be the last time I'd see them. And I remember, this is not funny, but it is funny.
It is funny. You have to laugh
went
about
to
the sad stuff.
One of the last vacations we were able to go to before he couldn't travel, we went to Florida. And we saw our friend Becky, we call her Bexy, and in a Utah accent. And she's our improv friend, just so funny. And we went to Disney World together, and she does the improv Monsters, Inc. show. And so she showed us all around. So, of course, we were laughing
the VIP
whole time.
tour.
And Chris put on my daughter's Pinocchio hat and wanted to get a picture with the Beast, Beauty and the Beast, and then somebody bent, and now we're. I'm falling and tripping all over my words because it's really hard to explain. That trip was so funny. And at the end of the trip, he's got this terminal disease, but we're still in the hopeful stage.
Yes.
It was 2017. It's only been maybe he'll be the one that can last for 10 years. Or we were still sort of in that thing, but I remember we were saying goodbye and he said, well, Bexy, goodbye forever. See you on the other side. And it was the first time he had said that before, and he meant it, but it was kind of funny, but kind of not funny. And she was like, Chris. And he's like, well,
it's true.
It's true. And I love you. And I'll see you soon. And because that's how he felt. And it was, I don't know, I think about that sometimes because then he got more comfortable saying it, and that's how he would talk.
And Lisa, I'm wondering, how much...
But he was able to say that to her.
Yeah, I'm wondering,
And shouldn't we all live our
that's
lives?
Exactly what I
know
was
that
gonna
sounds
say.
so cheesy, but
no.
Shouldn't we?
Shouldn't we be speaking that authentically all the time and assuming that about each other all the time? Because I think, if anything, the last 2 years has shown us that all of a sudden,
But I love those expressions of that. And I know that, especially at the end, he would say, when he couldn't move or talk. Talk about level of influence, right? He's not directing, he's not teaching a ton of students or creating art. He was, but he was still a husband, still a father, still all of these, still a friend, relationship. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, but he still woke up every day and would pray and say, who can I help today? Mm-hmm. He would is there one person that I could text or write an email to or just brighten or something? Because he just thought I can still have that kind of that influence or whatever. So I don't know. I think that that 100% has changed my view on, what it means to be
successful
or how you show up. A kind of influence.
But Lisa, I'm going to whip it around to you and say, I feel like the public, from what they journeyed that with you in, will say that he had a huge influence. But I've said it to you before. You're just as much a part of that because
No, I don't know. But
come on, you're going to try to change the subject. And I'm going to just say,
no, I just think I don't like to evaluate. I just like to go forward.
But listen, I just said this to my mother-in-law, my father-in-law died of MS. The last 15, 16 years were horrific. And I'm going to say this. I have a niece, 2 nieces right now going through some horrific medical stuff. And I said to her, do you see Dad in your legacy? And she's like, no, we didn't do it well. I wasn't patient. I was fresh. And I said, Mom, first of all, did you guys kill each other? She's like, no. And I'm like, and you kept your faith and you kept your family and you kept showing up and you kept trying, and it was a mess. I don't think you guys had any idea that grandchildren would then, in really young ages with young families, be navigating some horrific situations. I know that they can look back and somewhere in their muscle memory see and remember grandma and grandpa and how they did it and how they kept trying. I'm going to say the same thing to you, Lisa. Like, sometimes it's the person sick that we go, okay, Chris used that humor, kept trying, kept praying. But I know as a friend what you were doing behind the scenes and just showing up now, right? Like, what impact? Maybe your kids, grandkids won't be able to say it to you until 20 years from now when they're facing their own stuff.
Well, you can't hold on for that, right? Like, that can't be the measure of anything.
Can't, but I think
anyone does, or the motivation.
But I think when you wake up every day and go, this does not seem to be changing the world for any good, and I don't seem to be useful to anyone, which I've had those thoughts, I have to trust that I'm doing my best. I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to be honest. I mean, sometimes to a fault.
To great entertainment.
TMI. Mom, please stop telling people on live television that stuff. And I don't know what good that is, but I know that the people that have influenced me, I hope they know. But they probably wake up every day wondering if they've made a difference.
I think it's just the human condition.
Yeah.
I really do it. And I
You've
really
made a difference in my life, Lisa. Don't try to change the subject. I know you were about to do that. Did you guys see? I just squeezed. She was about to
uncomfortable.
Segue was happening right there. I just want you to receive it, because there are moments I've messaged you where I'm in moments where I'm like, this is not the exact same, but I've watched this.
It's hard.
I've watched Lisa model some of this. She's not robbing banks that I know of. And so it's given me strength. Isn't that what being human and being in this human family means? Is like we're bumping up against each other. We're making a mess of it all. And hopefully, because of podcasts, we're having conversations that we didn't have, that my mother-in-law didn't get to listen to any podcasts about helping your spouse through MS and what it looks like when your spouse doesn't get out of bed for a year before he dies. Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about some of this stuff, and so can't that be something that we're doing better at?
I know. Can't that be like, hey, this person showed up for me and it like changed my life, and it might not have been that big of a deal. Like that's just like, Chris expressing love to somebody, or like I got so many notes after he passed about like, you don't understand, you need to know, like. That saved me, or anyway, just some really
and
sweet
you too,
expressions.
Missy. Yes, little wifey do.
You don't feel it when you're in a time of transition, when you're like hustling and just trying to, I don't know, live life, and then you stop or have a moment just sort of to look around to go, what are we doing? What are we doing? And certainly when kids leave home, that's a huge thing for a lot of people. When like a job transition, like life and death,
even the good stuff, it's still changed.
Yeah, even weddings and babies,
moving to a new great house, but all of a sudden you don't know where your bank is or your dentist is, and it's changed.
So many like points of transition, and there it is. It's a stress, right? Like it's a different kind of stress in it. I do think that like it's given me an opportunity to sort of like say, okay, so then all the cards are on the table, right? Like you can choose how you want to live now.
Which
you know,
is why I want my friend to check on me in 3 months, because I'm afraid that one of the cards on the table, Lisa, is me watching a lot of Netflix and never getting out of bed. I mean, that's where my brain.
A card.
I know that is a card.
We could pick that up.
I know. And
we could do lots of things. I mean, it's not, I feel a sort of constricted when I think that it has to be one thing. I think we all want choice, right? Like we all want to be like, I have chosen this life and how I live. And so when, something knocks you off your feet that you feel like, wait, I didn't choose this, then it feels unfair, even though that's just life, right?
Well, and also, like I've said to people, if all of a sudden my social media accounts go black and I'm gone and there's no posting or sharing, like I really do hope that I can hear God say, you're done. You need to
do something else.
This season is done. I hope I have the grace that, I tell my friends, would you be the good friend to come and just knock on my door and be like, those cute grandmas that are like, they have always had long hair, but there's now only like 3 hairs left because I don't want to be that girl. I want my friends to go, it's time to do the little pixie cut, cut the hair. I don't want to stay too long at the party where everyone's like, we already packed it up and you didn't get that memo, right? Memo, right? I do write books, but I have an editor. So I hope I have that grace, but I'm also trying to give myself permission that it feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a handbook.
I appreciate you saying that. I do feel like some people, I imagine some people, I don't know if I've ever talked to anyone like this, who just feel, no, that's not true. There have been certain times in my life where I felt like this is who I am. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. When I was taking care of Chris, I felt that. I felt like there's nothing more important than I could be doing than taking care of him. And he's been such a good husband, such a good father and person to make his life more comfortable. And I felt that. And so that helps. But sometimes when you feel like,
then that changes.
Anybody could do this, or is this the right thing, or is this how I should be, living my life? When it's a little bit more murky, I feel like that calling is like the feeling when your kids start to leave home. Well, now what's my role? I knew before what it was.
Yeah.
It was very clear, hey, this is the program where I teach you things and I keep you safe and I give you my opinion and I love you unconditionally. And we practice that over and over again. When you leave home, our relationship is going to look different. How? Well, then it gets a little bit more murky. Then you feel a little less confident about it. And for whatever reason, I feel like then keeping that focus is harder.
That's why I need to come back and we just talk about parenting adult children because
in 3 months.
Seriously, I feel like I've tried to look at people ahead of me on the trail that I admire, that I think are doing a good version of that. And I literally will stop them and be like, okay, tell me.
What do I do?
What are you doing with in-law kids? How are you handling da-da-da-da? How are you? And it's interesting because they'll tell me the real story. And that's just a good reminder. Whatever you see Lisa and I putting on social, it's a version. I try to be pretty authentic. I do too,
but I also try to be really respectful of my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't want me posting
I did it.
business.
I know veil posting is not appreciated, but I do try to be honest with still protecting privacy, right?
Yeah.
And not always disclose every detail of every whatever.
As 2 oversharers, I would like to be congratulated for our restraint.
Listen, I said that to my kids the other day. Do you understand the blood in my mouth of me biting my tongue? You don't understand the iceberg of things, Dad, and I really do want to say. Right. So when I'm a good listener, which is code for my kids saying to me that I didn't give the unsolicited advice, I just wrote my daughter this letter, and I said, first 2 paragraphs are just mom love. The rest of it is all advice. If you're not in the mood, skip that part. And she goes, Mom, that was so brilliant. Because I can go back to it. Yeah. There. That's a little takeaway.
I physically can't keep it in, so I call my brother, who has kids about the same age. I call my brother and I go, hey, guess what all of this is? And I list it all out and I go, but guess what? It's none of my business. And he's like, he just laughs and says, you're right. It's none of your business now.
Oh.
And then I feel like I've had my say, but that I don't ruin my relationship.
You take mine, I'm taking yours. We weren't going to do takeaways, but I'm taking them. Because I am thinking of the people I can call and give all my great. And I tell my kids, people pay me to talk. People pay me to get my opinion in a book form. You don't want it for free? Because it's for free, babe. I got it all day.
The hardest part of mothering for me has been to learn to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, and let them have their own journey and wait for them
think
to
we
circle
solved it.
back. We did? Okay. Check.
Now I know what your deal is.
This is my deal.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio. This week, our show is produced by Lisa Valentine Clark and McKay Menden. If you want to continue the conversations we started, please join our group on Facebook called The Lisa Show Listener Community. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We would really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. Thank you for listening to The Lisa Show.